Members, we move to questions to the Minister for the Economy, and questions 6 and 12 have been withdrawn. I call Leanne Forsyth.
Mr. Speaker, question 1, please.
Minister.
Numerous tourism statistics are published on NISRA, Tourism Ireland and Tourism Northern Ireland websites. These range from trends and performance figures, the tourism satellite account showing the sector's economic impact and consumer industry sentiment analysis, to attraction and accommodation statistics, overseas visitors to Ireland and outlook for the sector. Tourism statistics are compiled from 4 data sources, 2 from NISRA and 2 from CSO Ireland. Following previous user consultation, it was agreed that statistics for the North should only be published when data from all 4 sources was available. Due to the impact of COVID on face-to-face interviews, the full suite of data was not available between March 2020 and January 2023. During this period, an alternative tourism data set was published on the NISRA website.
Leanne Forsyth.
Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. Due to the lack of the data published from NISRA through the COVID years right up to 2023, it's a bit disappointing that we haven't got a capture of the day trips, the staycation and within Northern Ireland and the travel between Northern Ireland and the Republic. And I was wondering, has the Minister undertaken any work on review of tourism during the COVID years to maximise that sort of tourism potential within Northern Ireland and across the Northern Ireland and the Republic?
Well, I have no doubt that during the COVID period, I'm sure she's familiar as I am, certainly anecdotally, the volume of traffic that came from south to north on the island was probably unprecedented. There have been recent statistics published by NISRA which do indicate that that volume increased significantly and has continued to grow, which is good news for our providers here. So we have no sense, there was albeit a gap with an alternative source during that time when it was impossible to do face-to-face consultations. There was tourism information provided, but if there is any sense that the tourism working group find that the statistics aren't up to scratch, I'm sure we can look at that. But as I say, there were recent fairly compelling statistics published just probably a number of weeks back from NISRA outlining that significant growth is continued.
Dennis.
And can I ask the Minister, what is the Department doing to assess and address the risks posed to the tourism industry by the British Government's electronic travel authorisation scheme?
Minister.
Well, I met with Seema Malhotra MP, the Home Office Minister for Migration and Citizenship on the 13th of November regarding the ETS scheme and to press for solutions to protect our tourism industry. And of course our tourism industry have been voicing very serious concerns in relation to this. It's vital that we have seamless all-island travel, and that's a key to building growth we've seen in the tourism sector. And the strong concerns have been expressed by them in relation to the impact that this might have. So I reiterated those concerns to Minister Malhotra and outlined that this is an issue where I believe solutions are needed to protect our tourism, travel and hospitality sector here in the North. Especially these businesses are facing a range of challenges such as rising energy and staff costs, including additional challenges from the recent budget in London. I'll be providing Minister Malhotra with more information on our concerns and the expected economic impacts, including the issues for tour operators and our visitor attractions.
Justin McNulty.
I thank the Minister for his answers thus far. The Minister will know why I've led the charge on the inclusion of counties Armagh and Down in the Ireland's Ancient East tourism brand. Minister, does the Minister agree with me that the growth of the tourism industry could be turbocharged in my constituency through the extension of the Fáilte Ireland brands into the north, in particular through the inclusion of Armagh and Down into the Ireland's Ancient East tourism brand, and what efforts will the Ministry be pursuing with the incoming Irish Government to ensure that vision becomes a reality?
Well, if the member keeps telling himself that he's led the charge, I'm sure at least he'll believe that, but I'm not sure that many others will. This is an issue that predates his involvement in politics by some time, where the conversations in relation to the tourism brands and their benefits to be used on this side of the border. And of course, that conversation has been going very strongly with the Department of the South since I came into office. We have a joint working group for the first time ever between the 3 tourism agencies and both departments, and I look forward to picking up that work with whoever should occupy that office on the other side of the election. The one that's most advanced, I think, in terms of possibility is Ireland's hidden heartlands, and there will be discussion going with Fermanagh and Omagh Council in relation to that. There is, of course, he will know, shared island funding, which is assisting in the development of the Wild Atlantic Way and the North Coast, the Causeway Coast And Ireland's Ancient East Fáilte Ireland are in the process of finalising a review of that brand themselves, and so when the outcome of that review is known, and hopefully very soon, then we can engage them further as to how the East Coast and Counties Armagh and Down will be involved in the tourism branding as part of Fáilte's package.
Claire Sugden.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Minister, the British Open returns to Royal Portrush next year. Does he have any plans for a showcase event, for example, to maximise the tourism opportunities right across Northern Ireland?
Well, there already is very significant planning ongoing in relation to that. I had met the Chamber up in Portrush Golf Club, and we got a presentation from the organisers in terms of some of the things that are going on there. We also had an opportunity at the Irish Open in County Down over the course of the summer to discuss how that could be improved on in terms of how that was profiling through advertising, through slots on TV, in among the play, advertising tourism opportunities and the tourism benefits of visiting here. So I have no doubt that that work is continuing, learning the lessons from the Irish Open, building on that, building on the experience of the last Open in Portrush, and making sure that this is a much better experience and we get much more benefit from it. But I'm very happy to continue to meet and continue to encourage and support to make sure that we have the best possible competition, but also we get the maximum benefit in terms of tourism return from it.
Dr. Steve Began.
Number 2, please.
Electricity interconnectors are an important tool in delivering the Energy Strategy and the Climate Change Act targets. They act to improve security of electricity supplies and allow us to export and import electricity when our system requires it. The Kilroot Scotland project will also require a licence approval from the utility regulator for the proportion of the interconnector here. However, my department has no role in the utility regulator or Ofgem's approval process and must remain impartial. The utility regulator's decision is expected this year. My department is carrying out further research on interconnection and energy storage, and this will improve our understanding of the overall benefits.
May I thank the Minister, and may I thank the Minister for his remarks. The Minister will be aware that there is a new interconnector that has been given approval by Ofgem, and the importance of that interconnector is to the whole island's energy market and energy system. However, there are real concerns are being expressed about whether that's going to be delivered in time because of the length of time it's taking for your department to get out its energy strategy. Is there anything that the department could do to speed this process up so we don't lose this great opportunity for improving energy security supply, not just to Northern Ireland, but across all of our islands?
Minister.
Well, I assure him that we are moving as fast a pace as we can. We recognise that security of energy supply and our focus on having an energy supply which isn't reliant on fossil fuels is critical for not just for our CO2 targets and carbon reduction targets, but also for the security of supply for our businesses and our homes right across the island. And so we are working at pace to make sure that all that we need to do in the department and working with other departments as well, and there's a lot of cross-departmental collaboration on this, is in place as effectively as soon as it can be in order to assist this process. So we will continue, and if I'm aware of any hold-ups in the department in relation to that, I'm very happy to address those and to look into them. But I can assure him that our intent on all of these issues is to move with all haste that we can, because we know if we're going to meet the targets that we've set ourselves, if we're going to provide that security of supply and security of cost, then we need to move at pace right across all of these areas.
Recently had the opportunity to visit a tidal research facility in Strangford Lough to see the benefits of tidal energy here in Northern Ireland. So I'd like to ask the Minister for his assessment of what conversations the Minister has had with his Scottish counterpart concerning the potential investment in hydropower and tidal energy.
Not really connected.
Well, we did have conversations in relation to all of the renewable sources, and tidal was in with Ryan when he was the Minister. He'll no longer be the Minister in relation to that. So I'm very happy to pick that up with the incoming Minister to see. I have to say, in the areas that we've been prioritising, tidal hasn't featured that strongly in relation to them. So we want to ensure things like wind, biomethane, geothermal, hydrogen, that we're pushing as fast as we can across all those areas. But renewables aren't going to come from one single source, so we have to examine all opportunities for them. And I'm content to go back to officials and see where the assessment is in relation to the tidal programme. But we have, as I say, been putting significant effort into those other sources.
Mr.
Speaker, Minister, since the Northern Ireland market has become integrated with that of the Republic, Many hard-pressed homeowners and businesses in Northern Ireland have seen a divergence from the lower power prices in the rest of the United Kingdom and a trend towards the higher prices in the Republic. Does the Minister believe that this project has the potential to undo some of that damage and deliver future savings for homeowners in Northern Ireland?
Well, interconnection, wherever it comes from, and of course there's a north-south interconnection and another one in the planning system, gives you more security of supply and also gives more opportunity for competitive prices. So that can come from any direction. Ultimately, if we want to get to security of supply and security of prices and certainty in relation to prices for our businesses and our industries, but also for our households, then that will be through renewables provided on this island. That's the fastest way we can get to that level of security and that level of certainty in terms of supply. So anything which contributes to that, I think, is a good thing.
Speaker. Minister, North Channel Wind has been developing a very significant offshore project. Recently there has been a pause put on it through the consultation as MOD has asked for it to be stopped because of submarine activity. Can you outline what you're doing to unleash this major project, because we are really struggling to meet our renewable targets?
Well, the MOD consultation response came in very late in the process. There was some, I think, perhaps in the region 9 months when there was no issue raised by them, and then when the project was about to move on, they suddenly came in with objections. I have raised that in Whitehall with British Government ministers and asked them to expedite this matter with the MOD to make sure that they don't become a barrier to what is very necessary in terms of our offshore renewables. But as I say, it came very late in the day. We have raised it over in London, and we have asked for an explanation in relation to that and for this matter to be expedited and resolved quickly.
Mr.
Speaker.
Minister.
DFC took the lead on fuel poverty strategy. However, actions which deliver change sit across government, and therefore we have collective responsibility to support those worst impacted by fuel poverty. My department has several areas of policy responsibility that can positively influence fuel poverty outcomes, most notably in relation to strategic energy policy. My officials engage regularly and are represented at a senior level both on the DFC Fuel Poverty Strategy Board and the Housing Supply Strategy Board. My officials also co-chair a residential housing coordination group relating to decarbonisation. At my most recent engagement with Minister Lyons on the housing supply strategy, these areas were referenced due to the many interdependencies that exist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, some 2 years ago, your predecessor, now the Communities Minister, indicated to me that the regulatory powers of the utility regulator would be reviewed under the energy supply strategy. So perhaps could you provide an update on that? And if the Speaker will indulge me, did any of your conversations centre around the extension of a warm homes discount to Northern Ireland?
Yes, I think, well, to answer the second question first, of course, we will look at that. There is a significant project being brought forward by the new incoming British government in relation to warm homes, and we will see whether I had correspondence recently and wrote back to the Minister responsible for that just to see where inner synergies could be met there. In relation to the utility regulator, I'm not aware that that commitment was given, but I'm very happy to go back and check with the department, and we'll respond in writing to the member.
Kelly Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Minister. Minister, you mentioned the decarbonisation of homes, and it will go a long way to decarbonise in Northern Ireland. What actions have you taken with the Minister for Communities to ensure that the fossil fuel, moving houses away from fossil fuel dependency is being taken?
As I said, we sit on the same. We have senior officials on that on this fuel poverty strategy, but also on the housing supply strategy board as well. And of course, we are encouraging that move away from fossil fuels. That's not just, I think, makes good economic sense, but it's actually it's going to be a key part of our targets in order to reduce carbon emissions. So we will continue to engage. I had a meeting with Minister Lyons on the housing supply strategy where all these issues were raised, and we will continue to provide support, as we have been doing, through officials to make sure that the housing strategy reflects the need to move to renewable energies.
Philip McGuigan.
Minister, and obviously fuel poverty, one of the contributing factors is energy prices. Can I ask what the FE is doing to reduce energy costs?
Minister.
Well, my department, alongside the utility regulator and the Consumer Council, continue to work closely to ensure that energy is affordable for all customers. We meet with the price-controlled energy suppliers for natural gas and electricity to review tariffs on a quarterly basis, and this is part of the utility regulator's regulatory processes to ensure that what consumers pay reflects the cost of providing natural gas and electricity.
Minister, can I ask, just following through on the theme that we were exploring earlier there, can I ask just how you'll work with Minister Lyons, or indeed his officials, to develop any new energy efficiency scheme designed as part of the efforts, and how those should benefit all, or as many as possible as we can get to, including those in the private rented sector?
Well, as I said, we sit on a number of bodies jointly with DFC from our energy team in the department, so we give advice in relation to that. The energy strategy will also obviously inform the housing strategy from DFC, and the energy strategy will be very much focused on renewables and ensuring that we have security and stability in terms of energy prices as we focus on creating our own energy supply through our own renewables. So we will continue to work together, of course, and I think it's hugely important that we do that. But yes, in relation to private homes, as I say, we're obviously restricted in terms of what we do financially, even though we would like to do much more, but we have been keeping track of a significant intervention in terms of warm homes that's been developed in London and brought forward. And as I said, in response to a previous question, I've been in correspondence back and forth with the Minister responsible. So we will keep a close eye on that and what implications it might have for a much broader energy home strategy, rather than just simply in the public housing sector.
Ross Bradley.
Mr. Speaker, question 4.
Mr.
Invest NI holds 126 acres of land across 4 business parks in East Derry constituency, with 2 sites located in Coleraine and 2 in Limavady. A total of 57 acres of this land remains available to support new investment, with the remainder having been sold and developed in support of business investment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, given your own sub-regional economic plan and recommendations to send £45 million dedicated to kick-starting the economy in that area, what engagement have your department had with Invest NI to explore the use of that land across East London Derry, in particular, and Causeway Coast and Glens?
Minister.
I think the energy, sorry, I'm back on the last question. The land strategy that has been developed by Invest NI is going to be very significant in terms of supporting regional balance, because if we're going to try and encourage development and growth across all of the areas across the north, then we need to ensure that there's land available to do that. I met last week, I think, or the week before, certainly within the last fortnight, with Invest NI to talk about that strategy and how it will be rolled out across the north. And of course, Invest NI are recruiting people with that land agency experience, and we'll be putting them into the regional offices to work with local areas such as Causeway Coast and Glen and people in the East Derry constituency to identify other land that may be available or may be useful or needed in relation to that, and make sure that that presence is on the ground and close to people on the ground, so we can get the best possible local economic advice. And of course, that's what the local economic partnerships I think will be turning their attention to as well, to ensure, as they promote economic development in each area, that there are the facilities there to encourage greater growth in the area.
Hunter.
I'd like to thank the Minister for his answers so far. Minister, East Derry is crying out for this investment and job creation. Can you detail any targets that the sub-regional plan will set in relation to this specific region as a counterweight to Belfast?
Minister.
We have set an overall target of 65% of growth outside of Belfast area, and what the local economic partnerships will do then, if you like, is drill down region by region into how they see that economic growth being promoted, what the ambitions are for it, what targets are required, and of course Invest NI is reorientating its regional presence to make sure it works very closely with councils and others in each area to provide support to help people articulate the economic options and opportunities that exist for them, but also to ensure that they are supported in the pursuit of those economic opportunities in the time ahead.
Mr. Holyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Minister's included a large section of my constituency in Lagan Valley within the Belfast area, and while its focus remains on sub-regional balance. But Lisburn currently has no or next to no Invest in I lands left to provide job opportunities for my constituents. So what is the Minister and his department doing to address this? And given our strategic location in the Belfast-Dublin economic corridor, surely we're the ideal location to help attract inward investment.
Linked to the
land strategy plan is not just looking simply outside of the Greater Belfast area, because we remain committed to growing the economy inside the Greater Belfast area. We just want to do more in order to try and address regional imbalance beyond that. So the land strategy will look at the location of strategic land. Of course, if we could get the Maze Long Kesh project up and developed and get the agreements necessary to get that moving, there is a ready-made land bank within your constituency to support that, which would support continued economic development. But I hope that can happen sooner rather than later. But I'm very happy to engage with a member or have Invest's land team engage with him if there are issues in relation to land that he particularly wants to raise with them.
Peter Martin.
Question number 5, Mr. Speaker.
It's vital that every young person in our society is supported to achieve and flourish. Improving support for young people with special educational needs is a priority in my department's business plan and the Executive Staff Programme for Government. My officials are scoping the existing skills and training provision, including through engaging with further and higher education institutions, experts and organisations such as MENCAP, Orchardville and the Now Group, and speaking to young people, their parents and teachers. My department, along with the Departments for Education, Health and Communities, have submitted a bid to the Interim Transformation Fund aimed at strengthening the skills and training provision and support for young people with special educational needs.
Peter Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, you'll be aware that Caleb's Cause is calling for post-19 SEN legislation to support these children. What level of confidence do you have that might be delivered within this mandate?
Well, I think it'll be challenging because it's complex and it crosses a number of departments, and we have only 2 years left of this mandate, so I have to be realistic. I have always said that if it requires regulation, then we should, or legislation, then we should move to legislate to make sure that this provision is protected. I think it's an injustice that people with special educational needs don't get the same level of support that people who progress through the education system that don't have those particular needs. So if that does require legislation, I think we should be committed to doing legislation, but I think what we should do in the remainder of this mandate is everything we can possibly do across a number of departments to make sure that we improve provision. That's what I've committed to, and thankfully with the Education, the Health and Communities departments, we have all committed together to work with transformation funds if we can secure them to help us with that process. So I think we need to get on with doing the things that we can do immediately, and we need to look at where gaps remain in terms of making sure there are protections for young people, and if that requires legislation at some stage into the future, then I think that's what needs to be done.
And I thank the Minister for his answers so far. Minister, how will the Employment Rights Bill assist people with disabilities in work?
Well, the Employment Rights Bill, the consultation, as I say, sought views on enhancing flexible working rights. Flexible working is an agreed way of meeting the needs of an employer and an employee through alternative approaches to working. It can enable those with caring responsibilities, disabilities or long-term health needs to access and remain in the workforce. The consultation, which closed at the end of September, proposed enhancements to the existing rights to make flexible working requests by making them available from the first day of employment, allowing an employee to make 2 statutory requests in any 12-month period, and removing the requirement that the employee must explain as part of the statutory request what effect the change would have on the employer and how that might be dealt with. The responses obviously are being currently analysed, and I expect to be able to introduce a bill to the Assembly by January 2026 or earlier if there is scope to do so.
Bobby Butler.
Mr. Speaker, thank the Minister for his answer and work in this regard. Could the Minister outline, if we don't have time to do legislation or if legislation isn't possible, what substantive measures would be available to him, maybe working collaboratively with the Education Minister and Health Minister to affect and change the lives of those young people that are being well underserved at the moment?
Well, that is our ambition. As I say, I recognise, I'm sure all of us in our own constituency duties have represented people who have fallen off the edge of this system and no longer get support post-19. And I have committed to trying to address that within my department, because we have responsibility for further and higher education and skills, but that overlaps into a range of other departments. So we have jointly bid for transformation funding to assist the 4 departments to try and work on this collaboratively together. If that is successful, hopefully it is, I think that gives us a significant impetus, but even if it's not, we are committed to work on this issue to try and improve, to make sure that in areas of access to skills, access to careers advice, access to support, that we are doing all in our part to make sure we change that approach that has been for far too long in not giving the proper levels of support to young people who have special educational needs.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank the Minister for his answers on this issue so far. You used the phrase that the situation for these young people is an injustice. So given the seriousness of that, what reassurance can you give parents of young people with special educational needs that by the end of this mandate, whether that be legislation or whether that be better systems in place, that there will be tangible change that they will be able to identify?
Minister. Well, that is my clear intention, and as I said, it is injustice that this particular nettle hasn't been grasped before in the way that it's currently been grasped, and I was very pleased to be able to do that in the position that I'm now in, and to work with other departments who share that commitment for trying to address this issue. So I do expect to see tangible changes to the approach that has been taken up to this date, and I hope we see them very soon, and we will do them as quickly as we can. And that's my commitment. And as I say, I just think in the remainder left of the mandate, and given the complexity of legislative requirements that might be, which we haven't yet fully scoped out, then it's unlikely, and there's no point in actually building up hope to people to say this will be done in this mandate. But I do think if we identify that legislation is needed to secure protections, then that is something that should be legislated for in the next mandate.
John Buckley. Minister.
Cancora, with your permission, I'll take questions 7 and 8 together. The budget contained a range of announcements that affect local businesses in a variety of ways, depending on the characteristics of each individual business, including its size, location, which sector it operates in, and how it chooses to manage the new arrangements. The rise in wages for our lowest paid workers is to be welcomed, but it has not been offset by a reduction in other costs. Indeed, it has been introduced in parallel with increasing employer national insurance contributions, which will put many businesses under more strain given the rising cost of doing businesses. There are measures in the autumn statement that present opportunities for local business, for example, unpausing of the growth deals, supporting key sectors such as life and health sciences, creative industries and aerospace, as well as key elements of the economic plan such as innovation and R&D and decarbonisation. But there are also very challenging elements of that, and it will take time to understand and engage with businesses to see the full impact of that budget on them.
Mr Buckley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Labour's disastrous budget not only had a severe impact on farmers, but also on those business owners with the increase in national insurances, with many of them feeling that they're being taxed to the point of death now. So can I ask the Minister, the budget shows that the growth rates have slowed down as a result. It also shows record numbers of company insolvencies throughout the UK as a result of these half-baked policies. So can the Minister outline how many businesses in Northern Ireland have filed for company insolvency post-Labour budget?
Sir. Well, I don't have that information at hand, but I'm very happy to correspond with the member to provide, if there is information that up to date in relation to that, and if that information reaches or attributes the causation of somebody's insolvency back to the budget position and how that has left them. I have to say I do support the idea of giving poorly paid workers more wages, but I think the government should have offset that by taking actions in relation to cost of living and cost of energy measures which are impacting on businesses as well. But I am happy to see if there are figures which the member has mentioned, and I will provide them if they're available.
Gurmailga Can Collier, and as the Minister will already know, I come from a constituency that relies heavily on the hospitality sector. Can the Minister outline the impact of the British Government's budget on the hospitality sector?
Minister. Well, as I said, the full impact will take time to become clear, but and I have acknowledged the benefits to workers from increases in national minimum and living wages, but there are challenges, in particular in relation to cost of energy. Where particular concerns raised by the hospitality sector in relation to the budget and their ongoing work to engage with executive departments on relevant issues. Myself and my officials will continue to engage with local business stakeholders, including those in the hospitality sector, to understand the full detail of the budgets in the context of my own economic plans.
Moving to topical questions, I call Sinead McLaughlin.
Minister, were you aware that the utility regulator's decision to allow NI networks to increase the cost of connecting new build development by 123% next year? What impact do you think that will have in the building sector?
Well, the utility regulator and anyone else have to make sure that whatever costs they agree can be raised, or whatever position they take in relation to costs, that they're done so in a way which is sustainable and has an evidence base to support that. So I look forward to engaging with the utility regulator on a range of these matters. As I said, we want to improve connectivity, we want to improve the ability for renewables to come onto the system, and that's going to be a key function between our department and the utility regulator. So we will continue to engage across all of these issues to make sure that we're satisfied with how things have been done.
Both the heads of the Construction Employers Federation and indeed the Northern Ireland Federation of Housing Associations have said consistently and unquestionably that we are currently in a housing crisis. If this rise is not addressed, we are putting a handbrake on the building sector that we so desperately need for our economy. What steps have you taken to ensure that that does not happen, and have you spoken to the Infrastructure Minister about the impact of NI Water is having on the construction industry?
Minister.
Well, it's very clear from the challenges we have in making sure that projects get moving, the impact of 10 or 12 years of austerity budgets, and particularly that impact in terms of Northern Ireland Water and the work that it needs to do to ensure that land is okay for development and is fit for development. So, of course, the Minister for Infrastructure will continue to bid to get more support to be able to do that work. And I have to say, executive colleagues recognise that that is a very serious handbrake, as you say, in relation to development. So I think it's incumbent on all of us across the executive to try and work collectively to make sure that where development is possible and is sustainable and is good development in the interests of the people who live here, then that we make sure that all obstacles to that are removed as quickly as we can. But some of that requires resource, and that's the biggest challenge that we have.
Brian Harvey.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, the sub-regional plan was recently launched by the Department with provision for the creation of new local economic partnerships across council areas. Could I ask the Minister, given that local councils are being requested to administer the LEPs and create action plans, if he intends to provide finance to cover costs associated with their administration to councils? Thank you.
Well, we are currently in dialogue with councils and to ensure that these plans are worked through, understood clearly by everybody. Whatever measures are needed to make sure that they can function are there, and that we do so at pace, because we want to see these local economic partnerships up and running by the new financial year. So we will continue to work with councils. We have a very good engagement with them, and of course they know that we have proposed a fund to be provided to support the local economic partnerships as well, and to assist them in the work that we intend them to do. And of course then we will have support through Invest NI and its officials, the department officials working more closely with councils in those areas to give advice and support, and to ensure that there is capacity within councils to deliver economic plans as well, because some councils are much more advanced than others, so there is capacity needed to be increased in certain council areas. But we will continue to do that over the coming months to make sure that we can get the partnerships off to a good start.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Minister. Given that departmental guidance on memberships of LEPs appears to mirror current labour market partnerships, does the Minister envisage significant duplication, and would he encourage LMPs to realign their function to avoid that?
Sure. Well, we've been quite relaxed in terms of how councils and local partners come together in relation to this. The only thing we have specified that it has to be a genuine partnership. But of course, you're right that the LMPs have very similar functions in that. If councils wish to have some kind of arrangement between those bodies and work more closely with them, or indeed look at the membership across both, then we're very happy to allow local councils the flexibility to work in that way. As I say, our only stipulation is that these have to be genuine partnerships. We recognise there are many bodies at work in very many local areas that have the ideas of economic growth as part of their remit. What we want to make sure is that people all pull together, that they develop their economic plans, that they get the support from Invest NI and from the Department for the Economy to do that, and that we improve that local voice and that local decision making in relation to economic development.
Kelly Armstrong.
Mr Speaker, and thank you, Minister. Minister, to ask you about carers now, I was wondering if you could give us your assessment of Carers NI's research showing that a statutory right to paid carers leave and flexible working could generate an additional 100 to 190 million in tax receipts in Northern Ireland every year.
Yeah, I'm aware, of course, that carers continue to press the right in relation to that, and I've said that I would as part of our Good Jobs Bill that we're consulting on, quite a lot relates to carers and the rights that carers have. And I would like to see a situation where we have people entitled to paid carers leave. That is going to be a matter for an executive. It's not a matter in my gift alone. It's going to be a matter for an executive to take. And obviously we would sincerely hope by the time we get to legislate for that, that the financial position has improved. And we will continue obviously through the Finance Minister press the British Government for a settlement and a financial settlement and arrangement that actually supports the provision of public service and does support the rights of carers and other people to access paid leave.
Ms Armstrong.
Much, Minister. I'm glad to hear that the Good Jobs Bill consultation does include that consideration for the paid carers leave. Will there be any guidance for employers on who a carer is?
Sure. I think if the definition of carer is a question then that we find that is not been fully understood, yes, I'm very happy to ensure that the consultation I'm sure that is reflected in the consultation responses, and there have been a very significant number of those that are being currently analysed over the course of the autumn. We intend, as I said, to move over the course of next year to drafting legislation. There will be an opportunity again to look at that, and of course then legislation will have its passage through the Assembly when again there will be an opportunity for scrutiny, amendments and other arguments and debates in relation to that. So there is quite some way to go in relation to this, and if we find that there are issues which are not being addressed, there will be opportunities to revisit that in the time ahead.
Speaker, can I ask the Minister what steps he is taking to promote a career in trades for young people?
Yes, well, we're working on careers advice to make sure that we support young people to have all of that advice in relation to trades that they seek. Careers advice has not been consistent or coherent across the entire of the schools network, and so we want to ensure that is the case. We want to ensure that we have more apprenticeship opportunities for young people, but of course that all requires resource, and we're struggling to get more done in that area, as much done as we would like to do in relation to that. But we are working with the Department of Education on a joint programme to make sure there's consistent careers advice. We're working on creating a careers portal so that parents themselves can have access to that advice, and that we ensure that young people have the full range of opportunities offered them. And we also provide for those in work who want to upskill and move on to new opportunities, regardless of what age they might be.
Thank the Minister for his response. The Minister would, I'm sure, agree with me that there is a scarcity of trades personnel, and therefore a need for young tradespeople to be coming into the system.
Minister. Yeah, I think we are. In some colleges we're struggling for people who have that teaching capacity, but we are continuing to work at that and to provide more flexibility for the colleges in terms of how they recruit people, to try and ensure that we have sufficient trainers for young people, and that we do. There are huge opportunities for young people who get trades and skills, significant opportunities to stay here, to work here, to grow businesses here if that's what they choose to do, but to settle here and rear families here. There are very significant opportunities, and we want to try and encourage as much of that. And if there is occasionally a deficit on the provision side in terms of staff, then we will work closely with the colleges to try and correct that.
Stephen Dunn.
Mr Speaker, can the Minister outline how he intends to address poor levels of job creation from inward investment within the Origin North Down Council area?
Well, we are content, as I said, to work. We have set targets for outside of the Greater Belfast area, but we continue to want to see growth inside that Greater Belfast area, and we will continue to support economic development there. If there are specific areas within his own constituency or within his own council area that he wishes to discuss with Invest or indeed with the Department in relation to their approach. I'm very happy to do that. But we want to see growth right across the region. We recognise in order to address regional imbalance we need to put more effort in to outside of the Greater Belfast area, but that does not mean that we won't be putting effort into the Greater Belfast area itself.
Speaker, thank the Minister for the answer. And figures acquired from your department show that there have been no new jobs created within the Ards and North Down Council area from foreign investment since 2020. Does the Minister think this is acceptable, and can he explain to my constituents in North Down why his department's new sub-regional economic plan includes a commitment to move investment outside of the Belfast metropolitan area, which includes my own constituency, despite figures showing it already isn't receiving the benefit of Invest NI's work?
Minister.
Well, it doesn't include that commitment to move investment outside of Belfast. It includes a commitment to grow more at a higher level outside of Belfast. It's not about moving anything anywhere. It's to try and grow and encourage more growth. And of course, there is, and many headlines have been about foreign direct investment, what jobs it created. I would also like to see businesses who are resident and are indigenous to the North Down area growing, giving them opportunities to grow their businesses, to increase their employment, to attract more people, as well as if foreign direct investment is available. Of course, that's still an important part of our economic prospectus. But we will continue to work with North Down and with Greater Belfast. We will encourage more growth and do more outside of that to try and address regional imbalance issues, as the Executive's programme for government has committed us to do. But that does not mean that we will abandon any area or leave any area behind.
Timothy Gasson.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, given your role and the role of your department in regard to the economy, can you tell us where Intertrade UK will be based, what its annual budget will be, and what staff complement will support it?
Mr. Intertrade UK will be based in Whitehall, is my understanding. It is creation of the British government, and they will have responsibility for it. So there is no responsibility lies on this side of the Irish Sea in relation to creating it, finding personnel for it, or staffing costs. It is entirely a creation of the British government, and we locate it in Whitehall.
Mr. Gasson.
Minister, you previously told me that the budget for Intertrade Ireland had ballooned by more than 1.8 million since the introduction of the protocol, and that 3 additional staff have been taken on. Based on your previous response, when will you become a minister that's in charge of all his department and not one just interested in his all-Ireland agenda?
Minister.
Well, I agree that we should be given more powers, and if he wishes to take more powers from the British government, I'm very happy to have his support in relation to that. That's been an ambition of ours for some time. But in this instance, Intertrade UK is not within my responsibility, so my responsibility does involve Intertrade Ireland and encouraging all-Ireland economic growth, which has been growing at a significant rate over the last number of years, and which obviously has the opportunity, given the protocol arrangements, to grow even further on the island, to the benefit of all the people of every constituency who live across the island. But I don't have responsibility for Intertrade UK, but I am very much up for a discussion on this Assembly taking powers back from the British government and exercising them on behalf of our people.
Thank you.
Minister, what will the Good Jobs Employment Rights Bill do to strengthen trade unions and enhance and secure workers' rights?
Well, one of the themes, if you like, or 4 themes in relation to the consultation, one of that is representation and voice. And that's to ensure that that people do have the right to organise in trade unions, that they do have the right to representation, that those rights become enshrined. In many ways, that they have been retreated from by the British government over the last 14 years. Thankfully, some of that hasn't happened here, so we aren't in as bad a position as they are in Britain. But we want to do sure that employees have the right to representation, have the right to organise themselves, and that we are obviously currently working through the consultation responses, and our intention is to go to draft legislation next year to reflect the outcome of that consultation.
Mr. McKay.
Minister, recent research from the Respected Work campaign at Queen's University suggests that union busting is rampant across the island of Ireland, with some 69% of workers surveyed reporting consistent anti-union behaviour from employers. Are you confident that the Good Jobs Employment Right legislation will prevent this type of anti-union activity here in the North and empower workers by securing their rights?
Minister.
Well, we obviously go through the consultation responses as at the moment. That will in turn be put into draft legislation. There will be an opportunity for the Assembly then to process that legislation, to debate it, to amend it, to put it through committee stage and do all that. So we will ensure obviously that we continue to hear from those who wish to provide representation for workers over the course of the passage of the development of the legislation and the passing of the legislation in this House, to make sure that we give the strongest possible voice to workers.
Move to questions to the Education Minister. Call Kate Nicholl.
Please.
Minister.
That the introduction of an early learning framework covering this age group is being considered as part of the work to develop a draft early learning and